After my husband passed, my son and his wife snatched the $29 million lake house and $41 million in stocks, telling me, "You're worthless now." But just 2 days later, the lawyer read the real will, and their faces turned pale. They say grief can make you vulnerable, but in my case it just made me furious. The day my husband died, my own son and his wife looked me dead in the eyes, called me useless, and threw me out with a mere $200. They thought they had everything. Oh, how wrong they were. Because in just 48 hours, a secret will would be read, and their carefully constructed world would absolutely crumble. My name is Florence Hayes, and for over 40 years, I was the quiet backbone of my family. My husband Robert and our son Daniel, they were my world. But just 2 days after Robert's funeral, my son Daniel and his wife Samantha tried to erase me from it. They tried to strip me of everything. They immediately laid claim to Robert's $29 million lake house and his $40 million in stocks, then looked me straight in the eye and called me a burden. I can still feel Daniel's hand shoving a measly $200 into my palm, like I was some beggar on his doorstep. And Samantha? She forced this sickeningly sweet smile, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Be independent, Florence. You'll get used to it." I packed 2 small suitcases and 1 precious wooden box. Inside that box was Robert's pocket watch, the only tangible thing I clung to. I stood in the living room, the heart of the house where I'd raised Daniel, cooked every single birthday meal, and nursed Robert through his illnesses. Daniel and Samantha, oblivious to my presence, were already measuring walls, discussing new furniture, as if I'd never existed there. The evening sun spilled across the hardwood floors I had polished countless times. I paused at the doorway, not to cry, not to beg, but just to remember. Then I walked out in silence, carrying 4 decades of my life in 2 small suitcases. On the porch, Samantha adjusted her designer sunglasses and whispered something to Daniel. He actually chuckled, as if dismissing me was just another chore. My son popped the BMW's trunk and tossed my bags inside like discarded trash. They thought they had it all: my husband's lakefront estate, his investments, the entire life we'd built. They looked me dead in the eye and said I was useless. But what they didn't know was that 48 hours later, in a lawyer's office, the real will would be read. And their faces? They would drain of every single ounce of color. I stepped off that porch, gripping Robert's pocket watch. His voice echoed in my memory. Years ago, he'd pressed that watch into my palm, saying, "When you feel reduced to just a wife or just a mother, remember that you were Florence first." In that moment, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I let the silence answer for me. Because sometimes silence is the loudest kind of power. Let me tell you how I went from the useless widow to the woman holding all the cards. The motel room smelled of bleach and stale fried onions. The air conditioner rattled like a shopping cart over broken asphalt, and paint curled from the walls. I set my 2 suitcases down, placed Robert's wooden watchbox on the nightstand, and locked the door. Click. It was a small sound, but it felt utterly decisive. I smoothed the blue diamond bedspread, trying to let the day's grime slide off me. I focused on breathing. Small, deliberate breaths. Daniel's words echoed in my head, insidious. "You are useless now. Go find somewhere else to die." I pressed my lips together. I wouldn't let those words decorate this sad room. Wouldn't let them hang on the lamp like a forgotten scarf. I pulled a chair to the narrow desk by the window. Outside, a vacancy sign blinked erratically. I counted the $200 Daniel had shoved at me, folded it carefully, and tucked it under the watch box. In the spotted bathroom mirror, lemon cleaner couldn't hide the old smoke in the grout. I returned to the bed and opened the box. Robert's pocket watch, a small cool sun, lay inside. Its brass was warm, familiar. The engraving gleamed. To Florence. For the hours I did not earn. The chain pulled in my palm. I wound the stem, held it to my ear. Asterisk tick. 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 Asterisk steady. It didn't care about houses or stocks, only about the relentless march of seconds, each one showing up, no matter how ordinary. A memory surfaced. Daniel, 8 years old, feverish, winter pressing against the kitchen window. I sat on the floor, counting his breaths, making time feel less cruel. Back in the motel, I pressed the cool watch to my cheek. The rattling air conditioner. A stubborn engine refusing to give up. I was surprised by the quiet space where panic should have been. Maybe grief was a kind of tidying, throwing out what didn't matter so I could carry what did. I sat, letting the quiet settle. I whispered a prayer, not for an answer, but to hear my own voice in this strange room. Keep me upright. Keep me kind. Keep me clear. I didn't ask to be spared pain, but to be kept from becoming hard. I placed the watch on my sternum, listening to its tick meet my heart's beat. 2 honest sounds, only rhythm. On a notepad I wrote 3 lines. Lake house, keys, bank, statements, lawyer, appointment. Neat, practical. My hand didn't shake. I slid the paper under the watch box. Tomorrow had a shape now, a spine I could hold. Robert's voice, a whisper from memory, reminded me. Do not forget you are Florence. The next morning, I took the bus to the lawyer's office. Whitman and Blake. Mr. Whitman had known our family for decades. His receptionist asked my name. Florence Hayes. She checked her screen. Mr. Whitman will see you now. He met me in the doorway, tall, gray at the temples. A genuine look of concern on his face. Florence, I'm surprised it's taken you this long. At the will reading, Daniel told me you were too distraught to attend. The words hit me like a physical blow. A will reading. I stood there, printers humming. I didn't know there had been a reading, I said. Daniel told you I was too distraught? He did, Whitman confirmed, troubled. Said you wanted him to handle everything, that you needed rest. My blood ran cold. I was washing platters at the reception, I countered. They were measuring my living room. He ushered me into his office, a room with law books, a chessboard, a window overlooking traffic. He poured coffee. This process should have included you, he said, opening a thick file. Robert was meticulous. He intended clarity. I'm not here for sorrow, I told him, my voice steady. I'm here to stand where I belong. Good, he said. He laid out a plan. He'd file an amended notice listing me as primary contact the bank to freeze accounts, and notify Daniel. He doesn't direct anything in this office. I nodded, the coffee smelling honest. He slid a leather folder toward me. From now on, every document will be copied for you. He helped me set up a new email and contact number. My signature for the first time in days looked like mine again. When he asked what happened after the service, I told him, keeping it clean. Daniel's $200 tip? Samantha's pitying smile, them measuring my home. I walked out carrying 2 suitcases and the watch. Whitman listened, unblinking. This is wrong, he said. Not just unkind but wrong. We will repair both. He showed me a cover letter in Robert's handwriting dated 6 months ago. Robert's neat script studied me. A strange mix of pain and foresight. At 3, he said. We'll go through everything line by line. I prefer lines, I replied. People hide inside summaries. He almost smiled. You have a lawyer's patience. No, I said. I have a widow's. He shook my hand. You belong in every room where your life is being decided. Walking out, distraught echoed. A label stuck to the wrong file. Daniel had tried to fold me out of my own story. But I can grieve and still read. I can bury my husband and still show up for the life I helped build. That sentence. Daniel told the lawyer I was too distraught to attend the reading of my own story. It tasted like metal. I decided to keep it on my tongue until it taught me something. Then I'd spit it out. I bought a roll from a bakery, ate half, and made a new list in my head. At 3 o'clock, show up, sit straight, ask clear questions, request copies, sign only what I understand. Let silence do some of the talking. I looked at my reflection in a storefront. You belong, I told her. Act like it. Paper has a way of correcting the noise people make with their mouths. I held the watch. It ticked like a small drum under my skin. I would meet whatever was in that file by name and let it know mine. At 3 o'clock sharp, I returned to Mr. Whitman's office. He motioned me to a leather chair that creaked under me. A sound like old trials. He opened a thick envelope, drawing out Robert's last will and testament. His voice was careful, measured. This is the executed will of Robert Hayes, dated 6 months prior to his passing. There is no ambiguity about its validity. He looked at me. Florence, are you ready? I nodded, hands resting on Robert's pocket watch in my lap. Its weight a steadying anchor. He began. To my beloved wife, Florence Hayes, I leave our primary residence, the lake house at Oakwood Shore, together with all furnishings. In addition, I bequeath 75% of my financial assets, including stock holdings, accounts, and investments, currently valued at over $30 million. I inhaled slowly. The words filled the room like a rising tide. For weeks I'd been called useless, a burden, a woman with nothing. Now, the law itself was declaring otherwise. Whitman continued. To my son Daniel Hayes I leave $11 million, representing 25% of my total assets, to be distributed through a trust. The trust is conditional. My breath hitched. Daniel's inheritance shall be maintained only if, following my death, he demonstrates continued respect and dignity toward his mother. In the event that he fails, all sums revert to Florence Hayes in full. The room fell silent. Asterisk tick. Tick. Asterisk, my throat tightened. My son had told me I was useless, thrown me out with $200. In that single cruel act, he had already forfeited everything his father had left for him. Whitman folded his hands. Robert was very specific. He wanted to ensure you were protected, Florence. He worried about Daniel's behavior. He instructed me personally that your well-being was to remain the cornerstone of this estate. A memory hit me, sharp as Robert's cologne. 6 months ago at our kitchen table, Robert, his heart already weak, had whispered, I worry Flo Daniel has grown careless. Money blinds him. If he fails you, the law will not. He'd made me promise not to forget myself. Now those words wrapped around me like a quilt stitched with foresight. Robert had seen it all coming. He'd known grief could make me vulnerable, that Daniel might twist sorrow into opportunity. He hadn't just left me assets, he'd left me armor. Whitman cleared his throat. Florence, do you understand what this means? My voice was low, steady. It means I am not homeless. It means my husband did not abandon me to pity. It means my son's cruelty has already written his own loss. Whitman's expression softened. Exactly. You are the rightful heir to the house, to the majority of the estate, and now to the conditional portion as well. Since Daniel's conduct has been demonstrably hostile, we will file the paperwork to secure it. Legally, you hold the cards. The pocket watch ticked against my palm louder now. Not a relic but a pulse. For the first time since Robert's death, I felt something return to my spine. Length, weight, certainty. Daniel's words, "You are useless now," had burned like acid. But here, in legal ink, Robert had inscribed the opposite. Asterisk Florence, you are necessary. You are deserving. You are safeguarded. Asterisk I closed my eyes, seeing Robert's soft smile across a chessboard, always 2 moves ahead. He had set the pieces so that even in death, he would shield me from betrayal. I opened my eyes, straightened in the chair. File whatever you must, I told Whitman. But understand, Mr. Whitman, this isn't about greed. This is about remembering who I am. For too long I let myself be reduced to wife, to mother, to background. Today I remember I am Florence. Whitman nodded. That is exactly how Robert intended it. I rose, the pocket watch clutched firmly. The motel walls, the $200, the insult of being called useless. All of it fell behind me like discarded skin. I walked out into the winter light, knowing one truth clear and bright. I had value and the law itself was standing beside me. The call came before dawn. Daniel's name blazing on my motel phone. Hello, Daniel, I answered, my voice calm. There's a mistake, he blurted. I can't access any accounts. The brokerage says everything is frozen. What did you do? There's no mistake, I replied. Your father believed I still have value. He scoffed. Value isn't the point. Liquidity is. Payments are due, utilities, the portfolio needs attention. This freeze will hurt performance. You moved into a house that isn't yours, I countered. You tried to manage assets that aren't yours. The performance you're worried about isn't your concern. He switched tactics, trying to instruct me. Do you even understand these positions? If you sit on your hands, you'll burn money. You are trying to control what doesn't belong to you, I said. You told Mr. Whitman I was too distraught. You told me to leave my home. You pressed cash into my hand like a tip. Those were choices, Daniel. Choices have consequences. Then Samantha's voice, bright and brittle. Florence, this is unnecessary drama. You don't know how to handle investments. Leaving money in your hands is wasteful. We are protecting Robert's legacy. No, I said. You are taking what you want and calling it protection. You're emotional, she said smoothly. Tomorrow we can meet at the house. You'll sign limited power of attorney so Daniel can act. That way we avoid fees. I will not sign a paper that removes my dignity, I said. Daniel snapped. Dignity doesn't pay taxes. We're trying to save you from yourself. I let the sentence hang. Dignity is precisely why I am not signing away control to the 2 people who told me I was useless. We never said useless, he practically shouted. You said exactly that, I replied. And if you hadn't, the way you treated me wrote the same word. Samantha whispered to him, then spoke softer this time. We love you, Florence. Be practical. Markets punish hesitation. If you insist on this freeze, value will evaporate. You'll be the one who loses. Law will not evaporate, I said. Law will name what you did. You can call it practicality. I will call it theft. Daniel's tone narrowed. Are you threatening us with police? I am stating the truth, I said. Mr. Whitman filed the proper notices. The accounts are secured until the court completes its process. You will receive communication through him. This is absurd, he cried. Dad trusted me with these decisions. I rested my palm on Robert's pocket watch. Your father trusted me with the home, with the majority of the assets, and with myself. He trusted you on one condition, respect. That clause is subjective, Samantha jumped in. No judge can measure feelings. Behavior can be measured, I countered. A locksmith's receipt, a moving invoice, a hotel charge the night I was told to leave. Passwords changed without consent. Those are not feelings. Daniel tried a softer door. We are family. Yes, I said. Which is why I offered silence instead of a scene on the lawn. Which is why I am speaking calmly now. Family should make us better. You chose to be smaller. He started to argue about the house being a hazard. That house stood while I scrubbed its floors for 40 years, I said. It will survive my steps. Samantha sighed. Fine. Here's a reasonable proposal. You keep the lake house as your residence. We take over the investments so they don't rot. We'll provide a monthly stipend. You are offering me an allowance from my own estate, I stated. It's efficient, she insisted. Modern caregiving. I am not your dependent, I said. I am the widow of the man whose name is on those statements. And I can read. Mom, this is time sensitive, Daniel said, exasperated. Be reasonable. I was reasonable for decades, I told him. Reasonable kept the lights on and your lunches packed. Reasonable let you speak over me at my own table. Today, I am not sacrificing clarity for politeness. So that's it, he demanded. You'd rather burn the account than admit you need help? I would rather honor the truth than live on a lie, I said. Samantha breathed in sharply. You don't have the expertise for a portfolio this size. You will make mistakes. I will make decisions, I said. And I will hire professionals who respect their client. You think Whitman is on your side because he likes you? Daniel sneered. He likes billable hours. He liked my husband enough to follow his instructions, I replied. And he likes the law. Last chance, Samantha said. Meet us tonight. Sign the limited power of attorney. We'll stop the freeze. No, I said. 2 words. No, Daniel. No, Samantha. You will regret this, he said. I already regret many things, I answered. Let this not be one of them. The line clicked. I set the phone down. The room still smelled of old carpet. The watch ticked. I lifted the blind. A film of frost covered the parking lot. My hands were steady. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't pleading. I was naming. Theft isn't an insult. It's a label and it belonged to them. In the glass, I saw a woman with quiet resolve. We had work to do. We were just beginning. One gray afternoon, there was a knock on my thin motel door. When I opened it, Nora stood there, my neighbor for nearly 30 years. A 70-year-old widow and former nurse. She'd seen me through so much. Her face, pink from the cold, held no pity, just plain truth. Florence, she said. I heard what happened. Couldn't sit at home while you were here alone. Seeing her nearly undid me. I let her in. The room seemed smaller with her, but also somehow cleaner, like a window cracked open. She put down a bag bread, cheese, a thermos of soup, and sat by the window, as if she were in my own kitchen, not this rented box. I poured instant coffee, embarrassed by the thin paper cups. She held hers, warming her hands. I saw them, she said finally. Out front with the suitcases. I thought Daniel was moving you somewhere better. Then I saw your face. I knew. I stared at the brass face of the watch in my lap. I've watched you sweep those steps, Florence. Rake leaves, shovel snow, plant flowers, scrub windows until they gleamed. That house, every corner of it was carried on your back. 40 years of meals, birthdays, sick nights, quiet mornings. It was never just Robert's. Never just Daniel's. It was yours. Her words landed heavier than Daniel's ever had. Not because they hurt, but because they pulled truth back into the room. They told me I was useless, I whispered. Nora leaned forward. Useless doesn't host every Thanksgiving until her knees swell. Useless doesn't work part-time to help with tuition. Useless doesn't hold a man's hand through chemo or rock a child through fever. I know what useless looks like, Florence, and it isn't you. Tears came sharp and uninvited, not in sobs but quiet hot lines down my cheeks. Nora didn't reach to wipe them. She let them be, like a nurse who knows some wounds need air. She offered me soup, its steam rising like comfort itself. I don't know who I am without that house, I confessed. For years, I thought I was only the woman behind the meals and mopped floors. They took it in one afternoon. No, Nora said firmly. They took your keys. They didn't take you. Florence is still Florence. The house was never the sum of you. It was the witness to you. I closed my eyes, clinging to that. She added, softer now. I've been alone longer than you. When my husband died, I thought I was nothing. Then I remembered I had been everything to him, and that counted. Sometimes we need someone else to remind us of what we carried, so it doesn't vanish in our own doubt. Her words bent something inside me, back toward its true shape. I managed a weak but real smile. Thank you, Nora. She nodded briskly. Eat the soup. And remember this. The law may take time, but truth will walk into the room eventually. Don't let them trick you into silence. I nodded again. For the first time in days, my spine lengthened. When she left, the room was still the same: thin towels, buzzing heater, cracked plaster. But I was not. I sat with the pocket watch and the now empty thermos, letting one thought root deeper than doubt. I had been seen. I had been named. Not useless, but essential. At our next meeting, Mr. Whitman looked at me, his face grave. Florence, I need you to hear this clearly. Daniel has already violated the trust conditions. By telling you to leave your home, by calling you useless, by denying you access to what is rightfully yours, he has triggered the clause Robert included. My stomach clenched. So, the $11 million he was left is forfeited? Whitman's tone was firm. All of it reverts to you. Legally, he no longer has any claim. The room seemed to shift. I sat straighter, my hand finding Robert's watch in my bag. We will file a petition in probate court this afternoon, Whitman continued. Once the judge reviews the will and the evidence of his conduct, the matter will be sealed. What evidence do we have? I asked quietly. Your testimony, my own record of his lies about you being distraught. We also have notarized accounts from the bank and broker, detailing his attempts to access funds without authority. He tapped the folder I brought. And the details you recorded: dates, receipts, the motel bill. Even the cash he handed you. All of it paints a clear picture. My scribbled notes I realized were stones in a new foundation. Later that day, Daniel stormed into Whitman's office. I was already there sitting quietly. Samantha followed, her perfume sharp. "This is outrageous," Daniel shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. "You can't strip me of my inheritance because of some misunderstanding. That clause is vague. Respect is subjective." Whitman's voice was steady. "It is not subjective when your mother is forced out of her home, handed cash like a servant, and told she is useless. It is not subjective when you lied to me. The law recognizes behavior, Mr. Hayes, and your behavior invalidates your claim." Daniel's face flushed crimson. "I'm his only son. That has to mean something." "It means Robert gave you an opportunity to honor your mother," Whitman said. "You chose not to. The will anticipated that possibility." Samantha stepped forward, her voice a poisonous calm. "Florence, listen. You don't want this fight. The legal costs, the publicity, it will wear you down. Let Daniel manage. You keep the house. Everyone wins." I finally spoke, my voice calm. "No, Samantha. Everyone does not win when lies govern the room. My husband gave me the house, the assets, and a condition. Your husband broke that condition the moment he opened his mouth. I don't need more fights. I need the truth filed where it belongs." Daniel spun to me, eyes narrowed. "You would do this to your own son?" I held his gaze. "You did this to yourself." His fists clenched. "Maybe I should draft a correction. Dad made mistakes. He wasn't in his right mind. We can produce a prior version of the will." Whitman's chair scraped back as he stood. "Careful, Daniel. Forging or producing false documents is fraud. A felony. You will not only lose your inheritance, you may face criminal charges." Daniel's jaw flexed. Samantha whispered to him. His body remained rigid, but his eyes darted between us. A week ago I would have shrunk, begged him to soften. Now I sat still, watching him rage, knowing the law stood between us. Power had shifted. I felt it in the calmness of my own breathing. "This isn't over." Daniel spat. "You think you've won because of a technicality, but money can be moved. Paper can be rewritten. I'll find a way." Whitman's eyes hardened. "Then you will find yourself in front of a judge for more than inheritance." They left, Samantha tugging at his furious arm. The door shut, leaving only the scent of her perfume and the echo of his anger. Whitman turned to me. "You handled that with remarkable composure." "I didn't handle it," I said quietly. "The law did. I just sat still long enough to let it." He nodded. "That is sometimes the strongest stance." When I left the building, the air felt different. Something had shifted in the marrow of my bones. For the first time, I was not the one being moved. I was the one choosing where to stand. That night, back at the motel, I spread my documents across the desk. My handwriting filled the margins with dates and reminders. I was no longer writing to survive. I was building a case. Each receipt, each note, each memory became part of the record. Robert's words returned. "If he fails you, the law will not." It was happening exactly as he foresaw. Daniel had failed me, and the law was speaking louder than his rage. I touched the pocket watch. The power no longer lived in his voice. It lived in the silence I chose, in the signatures I gathered, in the steady tick of a watch that had never stopped keeping time. With Mr. Whitman's paralegal, Ruth, I returned to the house. Not to fight, but to inventory for the court. My key still turned in the side door. In Robert's study, a room I hadn't dared to linger in, a safe. My hands knew the combination. Inside, among his papers, a thumb drive and a small velvet pouch with his neat script. "For Florence." My chest widened and tightened all at once. Back at the motel, I plugged the drive into my old laptop. A folder appeared. "Start here." Inside, an audio file. My fingers trembled as I clicked. Then his voice. Robert's voice. Patient and whole. "Flo," he said, the name he used when he wanted me to release my jaw. "If you are hearing this, it means Daniel has forgotten what I feared most. Do not hesitate. The law is your backbone." I pressed a hand to my chest. He continued without anger. "I thought I had more time to teach him what a promise feels like. Maybe I failed. That's on me. But you are not the payment for my mistakes. I have set matters in order to protect you." In other folders there were letters, statements, instructions. A letter for Daniel, to be read if he challenged the will. Records of every holding. Step-by-step instructions for Whitman and the bank. "If he treats you without respect, the clause triggers." That is the line I drew. I am sorry to make you carry a line. I know you prefer bridges. I swallowed, the ache in my throat. He had seen me. Always. For years. I'd confused my quiet nature with invisibility. His voice proved I was wrong. "Grief will make noise around you," he'd said. "Let it pass like weather. You don't have to argue with the storm. Write down what happens. Let the paper speak when people forget how. If you feel small, hold the pocket watch. He kept time through worse storms than this. It belonged to my father, then to me. I wanted it to belong to the woman who kept us both honest. I paused the audio, wiping my eyes. I pressed play. I've included a letter for Nora. She is a witness. Ask her to tell the truth if anyone asks who kept the house standing. Then a smaller file caught my eye. Apology. Clicked it. His voice was closer now. I am sorry I sometimes spoke about money as if it were mine to explain to you. You knew more than I let you prove. You were not background. You were the frame. Without a frame, the picture slides to the floor. I cried, truly cried. Not for the estate or the fight or Daniel's words. I cried because the man I loved had done the quiet work of love all the way to the end. He had organized not just accounts but courage for me to borrow. My letter from him was short. Flo, if you need to hear this in writing, you are allowed to outlive everyone's version of you, including mine. Use the house as you wish. Buy new paint. Leave the windows open. Learn the names of your own mornings. It sounded so like Robert, practical and tender in the same line. I didn't open Daniel's letter. Not yet. In the statements folder, meticulous spreadsheets, notes, a highlighted paragraph, survivorship details clear as daylight. He had anticipated every doubt, placed a chair of facts there first. The instructions folder held scripts. If Daniel raises his voice, breathe. Say, I am not signing anything today. Direct him to Whitman. If Samantha uses care as a reason to ask for control, say, I already have care. Thank you. The law is sufficient. He knew their rhythms. He knew mine. He had given me a way to stay myself. The audio ended with his voice lowered. If there is a day when you feel alone in a room where you should not be, remember this. I put you there on purpose. I am not here to back you, but the paperwork is. Hold that watch and stand. The room was not empty. It was inhabited by the thinnest outline of his presence. A kindness with edges. I sat there, the watch cooling in my hand. Life gives you twists, and Robert had left signs at each bend. The twist wasn't that he controlled me from beyond, but that he trusted me to control myself. Ruth confirmed the filing had gone through. I emailed Whitman, attaching Robert's instruction list. He called back. I'm not surprised. Your husband planned as if storms were inevitable. He knew our weather, I answered. I opened a scanned copy of Robert's letter to Nora. I didn't read it yet, but knowing it existed made me feel less alone. In the motel mirror, I saw a woman with steady eyes. I stood in the middle of the room and said a sentence out loud. Not for a judge, not for Daniel, but for the bones in my back. The law is my backbone. I said it once, the room didn't tilt. I said it again, it sounded like truth. I said it a third time and I felt taller. Daniel and Samantha tried one last desperate maneuver, cornering me with a settlement that night. They offered the house and $5 million for my silence, threatening that if I pushed, the FBI would dig up dirt on Robert, ruin his name and take everything. They wanted me to sign a document that would strip me of dignity, calling it saving me from myself. They spun tales of unclean money Robert supposedly had, but I refused. I would not sell my dignity for a bargain, not to them. I told Daniel, even if Robert left coins stained with dirt, I will not sell my dignity. I cannot live without myself. Why can't you just make this easy? He pleaded, almost desperate. Because you are not fixing it, I said softly. You are burying it, and I will not climb into that grave with you. You'll regret this, Samantha hissed as they left. I regret only one thing, I answered. That I raised a son who thought his mother could be bought. They slammed the door. That night, despite the fear, I made the call. Agent Collins from the FBI. He had given me a direct number, in case threats escalated. Mrs. Hayes, he said, his voice brisk but not unkind. I've been expecting you. The federal building was cold steel and glass. In a conference room, Agent Collins sat across from me. Mrs. Hayes, he began, I need to tell you something that may change how you see everything. My heart hammered. First, understand this. Robert Hayes was not a criminal. He was an FBI informant for 12 years. I froze. Informant. Collins nodded. Deep cover. He cooperated with us on operations involving organized financial crimes. While on the surface he appeared to facilitate certain money flows, in reality he was gathering evidence, passing information, helping us build cases. The accounts Daniel and Samantha tried to frighten me with, those were part of a structured program. The money Robert left me was cleared by federal channels. It was legitimate. It was mine. I gripped the pocket watch so hard the chain dug into my skin. He never told me, I whispered. Of course he didn't, Collins said gently. For your protection, these operations required absolute secrecy. Tears streamed down my face. Not bitter tears of betrayal, but relief, pride, and grief braided together. The only ones tainted here are Daniel and Samantha, Collins continued, twisting half-truths into weapons. Your husband, on the other hand, is remembered here as one of our most valuable civilian assets. He kept entire cases alive by risking his reputation. I sobbed quietly. So he was protecting me, even when he looked like he was excluding me. Collins's eyes softened. Yes, Florence. He carried that role right to the end, and he left you secure. He slid redacted documents across the table. Authorization forms, operation logs, payments authorized under his informant contract. These prove the estate is legitimate. No agency will seize what you inherited. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Dates stretching back over a decade. Asset haze provided information leading to seizure. Informant code 5D173. He was code 5D173? I whispered. Collins allowed a faint smile. Yes, and a damn good one. All the times Robert had seemed preoccupied, all the consulting work. It suddenly made sense. He had been carrying danger quietly so I wouldn't have to. He had never stopped shielding me. Will Daniel and Samantha know this truth? I asked. They may suspect, Collins said, but we won't confirm it to them. They don't deserve that privilege. What they will know is that their manipulation has failed. I closed the folder gently. Then I will not fear them anymore. Good, he said. Hold your ground, Florence. Robert trusted you too. As I left the building, the winter air bit my face, but my chest felt lighter than it had in months. I stopped on the steps, pulled out the watch. Asterisk tick. Tick. Asterisk, you were never a criminal, Robert. I whispered into the cold. You were a quiet hero. And now I knew. My husband's name, his dignity restored. And with it, mine. Agent Collins arranged one final meeting in a neutral office, telling me I wouldn't be alone. Daniel and Samantha were already there when I walked in. Daniel in his armored navy suit. Samantha in winter white, her lipstick sharp, her posture a verdict. A black briefcase sat before them like a pet they trusted more than people. They didn't stand. Mother, Daniel began, the word a hollow shape. We need to talk. This will be quick if everyone behaves like an adult. I didn't sit in the side seat they left open. I took the head of the table. It mattered. Samantha slid papers toward me. This is the revised agreement, she said, her smile trained to pass for kindness. You keep the lake house. You receive $5 million in liquid assets. We assume management of the remaining portfolio and any liabilities tied to historical transactions. In exchange, you agree not to pursue criminal complaints or make public statements that could damage the family. A settlement and non-disclosure agreement. It wanted my silence the way winter wants leaves. Daniel tapped a pen. Sign there and there. We have a notary on call. This is how we end the mess. Exposure, I said, turning a page. That was your word last night. He leaned in. If you keep fighting, the Bureau will tear through everything. You'll bleed money, they'll seize the rest. If you sign, you get security. We get discretion. And Dad's reputation stays intact. I folded my hands. I met with someone yesterday. He doesn't think discretion is owed to people who lie. Samantha's fingers tightened on her pen. Who? I let the question hang, creating its own gravity. The vents hummed. My pocket watch ticked a quiet metronome under my coat. Daniel exhaled sharply. Mother, sign it. This is the lifeboat. The door opened. A man in a gray suit stepped in. The notary is 5 minutes out, he said, then closed the door. Daniel relaxed, mistaking choreography for luck. I reread the clause. I agree to refrain from contacting law enforcement. A hook baked into bread. I squared the stack of papers. No, I said. Daniel blinked. No is not an option. It's the only word I forgot to use for 40 years, I replied. No. The door opened again. Not politely this time. 2 agents in dark jackets entered first. Behind them, Agent Collins, steady as a force of nature. He held up his badge and a sheet of paper. Daniel Hayes, Samantha Hayes, he said. Federal agents. We have a search warrant for electronic devices and documents related to attempted fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Keep your hands where we can see them. The air sharpened. Daniel half rose, then dropped back into his seat. Samantha's smile fractured. An agent moved toward the briefcase. Please step back, sir. The clasp clicked. Inside lay their carefully constructed future. This is a misunderstanding. Samantha cried. We're executing a voluntary family agreement. Collins didn't break pace. You attempted to coerce Mrs. Hayes into signing an agreement designed to obstruct justice. You leveraged claims about illicit funds you knew or should have known were false. The estate funds are lawful. The agreement is not. Daniel turned to me like I'd pulled a lever beneath his chair. Mother, you can't do this to your own son. My body wanted to shake, but I wouldn't let it. I kept my voice even. You once told me I was useless. Today, you will learn what a mother is worth. He flinched. The agents worked quietly, photographing the table, gloving phones, sliding each item into labeled sleeves. A third agent read rights, his cadence putting words where they belonged. The notary mercifully never arrived. Daniel tried a softer key. Mom, say the word and they'll stop. Tell them we were helping you. Help doesn't start with a lie and end with my silence, I said. Samantha's calm peeled back. This is vengeance. This is accounting, I answered. Please stand. An agent told Daniel. He rose chin high as if posture could edit reality. The cuffs flashed dull in the conference light. Unnecessary. he said. Procedure, the agent replied, fitting metal around his wrists with professional care. The small click landed like a period at the end of a long sentence. When they reached Samantha, she stared past us at the skyline, searching for a reflection she could bear. Her bracelets were smaller but no less real. They were let out, their footsteps thinning down the hall. I sat. My hands were steady. The watch ticked its small, stubborn rhythm under my coat. Not triumph. Confirmation. Collins returned, quieter. You handled that with grace. I stood. Sometimes that's the work. It often is. He walked me to the elevator. Our reflections in the stainless panel. His composed my face, a woman who had learned the weight of her own name. Outside, the cold cleaned the last of the room from my lungs. I didn't hurry. I bought a soft roll from the corner bakery, a habit. I ate it at the window, watching the city move. Let truth keep its pace. Let justice mind the details. Let me stay the size that fits my soul. At the bus stop, my shoulders had lowered. The watch beat steady. When the bus turned toward the lake, a pale band of light opened over the water. I pictured Robert's study, now my studio. The windows unlatched, the air moving. Mornings I would name for myself. I pressed my palm over the watch, letting the quiet finish what the squad cars had started. I had answered my son in the only language that could not be rewritten. Paper, time, boundaries, said without shouting. We rolled past my road. The trees hid the house. A small mercy, a habit. The house remembers, Nora said. I believed her. I pulled the cord. The bell chimed. I stood. When the doors opened, the air smelled like salt and cold and beginning. I stepped down to the curb, felt the ground answer under both feet. The lake house was mine again. But when I unlocked the door, it felt different. No longer a battleground. No longer a stage for Daniel's performance of entitlement. It was quiet, receptive, like a chest unlocked after years of holding its breath. I walked straight to Robert's study. That room, always his with its dark shelves and frozen chessboard, now belonged to me. I cleared the desk, boxed his papers, set the chessboard gently in the closet. I opened the curtains wide, let the lake light flood the walls until even the shadows looked awake. Then I brought in the easel I'd bought with my first independent check. A simple wooden frame, still smelling of pine. I set out brushes, a palette, tubes of paint I hadn't touched in years. My hands shook with an anticipation that had nothing to do with money. The first stroke was hesitant, then another and another. The canvas filled with the shape I knew by instinct. A woman standing by a window, her back straight, her face lit by morning. No jewels, no ornament, just calm. The light in her eyes wasn't young, but it was unbroken. I painted for hours. When I stepped back, I recognized her. Not a saint, not a victim. Just Florence, seen at last. Under the table, the pocket watch ticked in its velvet pouch, as if time itself were keeping me company. Next to it lay an envelope I'd addressed but would never mail. It held words I needed to release. Daniel, I do not hate you. Hate would tie me to you in a way I refuse. But you chose to see me as useless. From now on, I choose to see myself as enough. I folded the letter and left it under the watch. Not for him. For me. A reminder that forgiveness doesn't always mean return. Sometimes it means drawing the line so clearly that even love cannot cross it without truth. As the afternoon light shifted across the floorboards, I rinsed my brushes, covered the canvas, and sat in the studio that had once been Robert's domain. The room felt lighter than it ever had. It no longer smelled of ledgers and strategy, but of paint, air, and possibility. I looked out the window across the water and felt a quiet kind of victory. One that doesn't shout. One that doesn't need an audience. It wasn't revenge I carried into that evening. It was peace, the kind you earn only by refusing to sell your dignity. Nora came on a soft Sunday carrying warm bread. I met her at the threshold of my new studio. Sun from Lake Michigan spilled across the floor, catching the easel's edge. The room was bright, the way truth is bright when you stop dimming it for other people. She stood very still, her eyes moving from the open curtains to the brushes, to the woman in the painting, looking out with a calm that was earned. Florence, she said, taking a breath like she was stepping into a clear morning. This house finally breathes like you. I smiled, feeling the line tuck itself inside my ribs like a promise kept. We poured tea. She sat in Robert's old chair. I took the one we'd rescued from a thrift store. I remember the old desk, Nora said, glancing at the corner where the chessboard used to be. I thought it would always sit there. It lived a good life, I said. But this room needed a window more than a desk. She nodded. It suits you, she said, eyes on the painting. Quiet spine, steady light. We let the tea do its work. They came in cuffs, she observed quietly after a moment. They did, I answered. I didn't celebrate. I stood. That is a kind of celebration, she said. When it is time to stop explaining. We listened to the house. It creaked the way old houses do when they relax. The years stacked and settled. The watch sat under the table beside my letter. Are you going to send it? Nora asked. No, I said. It tells the truth, but it's a truth for me. You chose the right kind of mercy. We talked about ordinary things. Nora rose and went close to the canvas. Her face, she said softly, isn't young but it is free. Freedom is a quiet color, I said. You have to mix it yourself. She laughed, dabbing her eyes. Promise me you'll keep painting. Not for a gallery. For the walls that held you. I promise, I said. This house deserves my mornings. We watched the water change shades as evening approached. The calendar in my head stopped counting court dates and started counting light. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt durable. Triumph flashes. Durability remains. Nora held my hand before she left. You did it the hard way, she said. The decent way. I did it the way I could live with, I replied. After she stepped out, I washed the cups. Wiped the window until my reflection softened enough to be kind. The watch ticked. The letter waited. I lifted the canvas for one last look. The woman by the window looked back with a steadiness I finally recognized as mine. As the sun dropped, a path of light stretched across the lake. I stood in that light, letting a final thought rise, shaped for anyone who has ever been pushed from their own doorstep and then found their way home. Victory is not when you watch them fall. Victory is when you sit in the house they tried to take, pour tea into your own cup, and know you are still here. When you understand you are the one who writes the final chapter. That is enough.